everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome, Cancer people, to your new moon forecast. This really forecast is certainly going to be astrologically addressing the Cancer sun, moon, and rising folks, specifically Cancer rising, because that is the chart we'll be looking at as we do this forecast. But this new moon is truly for all of us. So, regardless of why you are here, whether you are a Cancer identified person, maybe you're a Capricorn person, that's going to be really important coming up as well. And we're coming off of a Capricorn full moon. We're actually going to have another one in at the end of this report. So, July 21st, our next full moon will be at the very last degrees of Cancer and Capricorn. Maybe you have Cancer in your progressions, maybe your draconic chart, maybe you're just here to learn astrology, or you're here to get some information about that Sirius Starseed activation. Whatever the reason, thank you for being here. I truly appreciate all of you and your support and your willingness to learn and to be on your own path by using whatever tools really resonate with you. So, special shout out, of course, to those who are part of the Starseed Fellowship and the Catalyst Classroom. Those are people who are supporting Catalyst Energies through Subscribestar and receiving your myriad of benefits. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you and your patience and your flexibility. I know the pressure is mounting. And we are coming up on this July 15th date that does seem to hold a potential release point, a tension release point, and we're going to talk about that because it's part of this particular forecast. But I'm feeling it too. I'm right there with you. So if you are feeling the pressure in your personal life or what is happening out on the social, cultural, political, institutional stage is having an effect on you personally, just know that we're all going through this. And this new moon in Cancer is going to be on the 5th of July. So as of today, it is the 4th of July. So happy birthday to the United States of America. Sun conjunct Sirius. We're going to talk about the elements of the star Sirius in this report. We're going to talk about Sirian starseeds and what that really holds. And then we'll get into the play-by-play for the next 2 weeks, new moon to full moon. But this, in my opinion, this new moon in particular is nothing short of an initiation and a shamanic initiation. And that has a lot to do with the nature of Sirius and the Sirian starseeds. And like I said, we'll get into some specifics about that. If you're questioning whether or not, what is a starseed? Am I a Sirian starseed? How do I know? Well, there's a lot of ways you can find out, but the way that I guide people through that process is by looking at the astrological chart. And you can, in the description box are all the links that you need, and especially if you're interested in a reading or just getting more information, you can go to my website and everything you need is there. So I have up this animated GIF of a Mandelbrot set. If you're not familiar what that is, it has to do with it's mathematical chaos, right? Dynamical systems, and Mandelbrot sets are based on equations, right? Mathematical equations. Julia sets are another type of mathematical dynamical system that is then shown in this animation or in these fractal geometries that are unfolding. And I felt like, rather than showing you my face, which is no big deal, but this particular GIF really encompasses, in my opinion, the degree of the sun today on the 4th of July, which is 14 degrees Cancer. And in Sabian symbol language, it really has to do with transcending and changeless wisdom. And if you really just sit with these Mandelbrot sets, it doesn't take long before you realize that it's infinite. It's an infinite unfolding over and over and over. And the Cancer energy is about the individual connection to the core of all experiences. And when we can make that connection as an individual, then we can attain supreme and age-old wisdom that then is the full fractal geometry in its unfolding, and its beautiful divine unfolding, right? And that's much more of the Capricorn energy. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we just had a Capricorn full moon. Capricorn is the antithesis of Cancer. You can't get away. If you're a Cancer identified person, you can't get away from Capricorn because it is your balance point. And we have an interesting transition that's happening, which is we're going to have another full moon in Capricorn. We had one just recently at the very beginning of the signs of Cancer and Capricorn, and our next full moon will be the very last degrees of Cancer and Capricorn. So Cancer people, Capricorn people, this is a very intense time for you in general, and for all of us. Like I said, this is nothing short of some type of shamanic initiation. Now, that's a loaded term at this point, and there's lots of information out there that you can look into to understand what shamanism really is. One thing that I would recommend personally that really helped me when I was actually studying shamanism from an academic anthropological perspective is the book Lame Deer. It's about a Lakota medicine man and a Heyoka, and I found his story to be very certainly very compelling, but really showcased what it means to truly be a medicine man, a holy person, a shaman, right? This is a guardian of a community, of a group, right? And a shaman is an individual that is the bridge between worlds, the physical and the non-physical. And through that bridge, being that bridge, the shaman is able to extract information from the non-physical, from the spirit realm, in order to assist and to heal the community and the family and the group that the shaman has really been called to guard and be a guardian. Now, some people are going to have Sirian starseed markings in their charts, and many people who are watching this probably already know what those are in their charts. And so I do feel like that element of shamanic initiation is either going to be reinforced, it's going to be maybe brought out for the first time. But for all of us, right, this is nothing short of an initiation. Now, a shamanic initiation is not something where you go into spirit chooses the shaman, okay? It's not something that you can, as much as, there are shaman schools that you can go to and pay money and be like, I'm a shaman now. It doesn't work that way truly. Spirit chooses the shaman. Spirit initiates the shaman, usually through some sort of really traumatic event. A lot of times a very serious illness. Sometimes it is through a near-death experience. Trauma is another initiatory experience into shamanism. Now, one thing I will say about this before we start really diving into the specifics here is that many of us, I would say most of us at this point in our society, can point to traumatic events that have shaped us and have initiated us into certain roles as shamans, as healers, as guides, right? As wisdom keepers, right? As holy people, as medicine people, whatever you feel called to, however you define it, right? I have my own toolkit that has led me into the position that I am in now. And I do a lot of different types of healing work, and some of it is shamanic, right? So we've all, I think, at this, especially if you're watching this, I feel like most, if not all, people can point to a traumatic event that has really initiated us into some sort of role. And especially if you are a starseed, that kind of goes without saying, in my opinion. So it's not as, there's a lot of us now that have been initiated into this process, but on the whole, it is the things that are happening, the things that are coming up in our personal lives, the things that are really really challenging us to tap into the core of who we are is going to be very intense and initiatory, just no matter what. Now, with a new moon, our intention behind that is really where we get to enact our free will moving forward. And the question that really has come up for me in terms of my read of this new moon is, Power is power is power. And the realm of Cancer in astrology, or the fourth house, which is the traditional home of the sign of Cancer, is about our inner power, our personal power, where we draw our power from. And how that power is released is through the Capricorn energy. And it doesn't really take much to see how we can use that power for the service, right? Service to others, through healing, through guidance, through being that bridge. But shamanism can easily turn into dark sorcery, and that power can be utilized for selfish service to self means, or service to materiality, service to darkness, right? And I think that's a question we're all going to be kind of faced with as we go through this lunar cycle. Now, we've already started this with the last full moon in the very, very beginning of Capricorn. And it allowed us to kind of hover over the situation and really get a broad spectrum perspective on what power really means and how we can use it responsibly, and how it is possible to exploit it, how we can exploit others, and how we can do real damage in the process of attempting to maintain or hold power. Now, as you look at this Mandelbrot set, it is infinitely unfolding, right? There's nothing that we each can really do once this process is initiated through, in this case, a mathematical equation being put into a geometric form. You're not going to stop this, right? You're not going to change it. You're not going to do anything except maybe change the dynamic of the system, right? That's the thing about chaos theory from a mathematical perspective, is that one change in a variable can also change the whole system, but it doesn't degrade the whole system. It doesn't mean that we're not part of that system. We definitely are part of that system. So we've already started with this full moon in Capricorn. That's like, is it worth it, right? Is it worth it to release our power in this particular direction? And now that we're here and we're on the cusp of this new moon conjunct Sirius, and about to move through this next lunar cycle with another Capricorn full moon, and I assure you, the last degree of Capricorn is all about power, right? Executive power. And we use it for service to the community, to the whole, or we use it to exploit other people. And how we move through these next couple of weeks, especially this next month, is going to determine a lot about where we are rooted. And so when we have a new moon, you have a couple days, right, while we're in the new moon phase, to really take the time to understand your own intention. You don't have to have it all figured out. That's kind of the whole point of the new moon. It's spontaneous, it's unknown, it is instinctual. Things start to grow, but the intention is there. So is your intention to be satiated by the roots that you are putting down in a way are you, well, I would say satiated. Where is your satiation, your satiety? Sorry guys, I just boy where is that, where is that coming from? Is that coming from a place of being rooted into a infinite part of who you are, or is it going to be to the point where you overindulge yourself? Now, one of the things I thought of, and if I had more time to add some production value to these forecasts, especially right now, right? Because it is a holiday and there's just lots of family stuff that I need to attend to and want to attend to. And of course, Cancer energy is all about family, home and family, devotion, faithfulness, loyalty, right? The root system that holds us together, right? And stabilizes us, which is home and family. one of the if I had more time, I would insert a clip from the Monty Python movie, The Meaning of Life, and I think some of you might already know where I'm going. There's that one sketch with the really large man that's in the restaurant, and he's just eating and eating and eating, and then he has the barf bucket, right, and he's just eating and throwing up and eating and throwing up, and then he just explodes, right. So we kind of have these two things here. We just like gathering power for the sake of power and really having it lead to our demise where we just blow up? Or are we able to set those root systems down? Are we able to gather our personal power? Are we able to take this initiatory experience of this new moon and this shamanic experience and use it for service to others, to our family, to our community, to be fulfilled by the changeless wisdom of the divine fractal geometry that is unfolding? So there is a permanence in truth, right? What we do with that and how it shapes our character is a big part of this whole lunar cycle. So I thought here, let's look into some Sirian starseed stuff and just familiarize ourselves with that, and then we'll get into the actual astrology itself. So let's bring up the window. There we go. Yes, that's what we want. We want this. And as much as I want to keep staring at this trippy thing. Okay, my friends. So this is the constellation of Canis Major. Sirius is a star in the neck of the dog, and it is by far one of the, if not the brightest star in our night sky. So it's a much more, at least in the northern hemisphere, it's much more viewable and observable in the wintertime. So, but the thing about Sirius and why it is such a huge part of not only the mystery schools in terms of their focus, right? There is definitely a reason that the Declaration of Independence was signed as the sun was in a conjunction to Sirius. But in Egyptian cosmology, the heliacal rising of Sirius, which is happens usually in August, kind of around the Lion's Gate time, is so when the star Sirius is rising in the morning and viewable before the sun, this signaled to the Egyptians that the Nile was soon going to flood, and those flood waters would nourish the land, and that's what supported their agriculture and their ability to not only feed themselves but to gather resources and stockpile calories, right? This is how civilizations are actually able to thrive, is by being able to stockpile calories. And that's something that that's not like a stretch to imagine. But I did hear someone very recently talk about this as well. And this really does feed into, no pun intended, feeding into the upcoming, focus on food shortages and what that means. So anyway, Sirius, one of the brightest stars in the sky, has a lot of energy attached to it in terms of ancient astrology and astronomy, of course, and is connected to the goddess Isis, right? And is also, Cancer is, in terms of the zodiac sign, has to do again with protection. It has to do with the womb. And so you can see that the water's rising, and Cancer is a water sign. It's cardinal water. So the nourishment from the inner waters is a big connection to Sirius as well. So you can go to any site and look up the star Sirius in terms of astrology. I would recommend astrologyking.com, but some things that I'm going to share with you that really feed into specifically the shamanic element and the Sirian starseed traits is that this star in ancient astrology gives honor, renown, wealth, faithfulness, devotion, passion. Right? And it makes, so if you have this in your natal charts, it makes people custodians, curators, guardians, okay? Guardians. This is really what the shamanic role encompasses, in my opinion, custodian and guardians, because this individual in their group is, again, the bridge between the material and spirit world. And as that bridge, is able to assist, to be a guardian, to be a custodian, not only to the people, but to all life. And when we get into the Sirian Starseed traits, you're going to see like, that kind of describes me really well. Maybe I'm a Sirian Starseed. And if you have 13, 14, 15 degrees Cancer in any of your charts, you are a Sirian Starseed. It's that simple, really. There are other markings in the chart that designate Sirian Starseed traits, and that's something where the nuance of an actual reading comes in. But if you do have it, 13, 14, 15 Cancer in any of your charts, natal chart, progressions, I would say even in your draconic chart, then you are a Sirian Starseed. So this star, like I said, if you have it in your chart, it does make you more of a custodian and a guardian, right? And so Sirius has oh my gosh, I never even noticed this. Sorry, guys. So it's one of the 15 Bohemian fixed stars, and a Bohemian fixed star has this kind of magical quality to it. And many of the really bright stars are Bohemian fixed stars, and it has an image associated with it, which is a dog. And of course, anybody who's had canines or has dogs, you know how loyal and faithful they are. They are the universal empath in many ways, right? Almost to a fault, right? Being serving their masters, so to speak, right? Even though I don't think about having a dog and me being the master so much as the human. But one of the things that I'm reading on astrologyking.com is that it rules Beryl, Beryl, as a Bohemian fixed star, and other things too, right? And it favors men, honor, goodwill, the favor of men. It has the power to pacify nobles and others. Oh, that's interesting. But what is the hurricane that's coming into the Caribbean right now? It's Beryl, Beryl. I never made that connection till just now. So, wow. Now, if you don't think that there's people that know this stuff that are naming these things and being, out there in the collective consciousness and driving things, I mean, every single day, I'm just like, wow, this is all so scripted. I don't know who's writing the script, but wow. Anyway, that just kind of caught me off guard, friends. So anyway, the star Sirius, like I said, there's lots of information online. I would recommend astrologyking.com. That's where this image is coming from, actually, on that website. So you can see lots of different perspectives on how this was ruled. And of course, it's connected to the 18th trump card in the tarot, which is the moon, right? And the moon is the ruling body of Cancer. So of course, having a new moon in Cancer and the moon moving through Cancer, if you are a Cancer moon person, oh my gosh, and especially if you have your Cancer moon conjunct Sirius, whoo boy, talk about initiation. You're going to be feeling it big time. Okay, so I thought we can go over some Sirian Starseed traits real quick. I'm going to bring back up the Mandelbrot set just in case you are, in fact, watching watching the screen. And then we'll bring up the chart and go into the play-by-play over the next the next 2 weeks. Let me find it here. There it is. So Sirian Starseeds. These are individuals that are very insular, right? They tend to have a very small, tight-knit group of friends, right? They don't tend to, especially if you have like a sun, moon, and rising conjunct Sirius, and it's part of your personality or how you express yourself. It is very insular, and the downside of that can be very isolationist, but there's a reason for that, right? It's about really vetting, those who come into the inner circle. And Sirian Starseeds are very adept at being able to feel other people's energy, okay? And that's why their role as custodian or guardian, regardless of if it's their family, if it's their land, if it's their tribe or clan, their spiritual community, whatever it is, there is this ability to really feel things out. And so people often will think, and I've gotten this in the past a lot, And it really rubs and it really rubs people the wrong way, and they don't know how to take it, because these individuals, often Syrian starseeds, will often tend to appear to be very shy and not very social. But I assure you that their quietness and their hesitation to really engage socially in situations is because they are feeling out the energy. They are scanning the room, so to speak. They are making sure that the people that they are in interaction with are safe to be around and able to come into their inner circle. So, tight knit group of friends. They also tend to be very artistic. So, yes, the shamanic quality, right? The people who are priests, like priestesses, like, mystery school priestesses and sorcerers and shamans, right? This definitely comes along with the Syrian starseed nature. These are people that tend to communicate with the plants and the animals almost easier than with people, right? The land, the elementals, the plants, the animals, there is a seamless connection to all of nature as part of the family. So these individuals tend to be very connected to the animals in their life, right? They tend to be really connected to the plants and know exactly what they need. They speak to the elementals. They are in communion with nature, and that's part of the family. But they also tend to be incredibly artistic, right? In all kinds of ways, visual art, music, right? Dance, all of these things. These are also the traits of Syrian starseeds. And they tend to be kind of on the fringe, socially and culturally. Like, they tend to be like the hippies and the goths, and I don't know what they are now, right? I'm just speaking towards when I was younger, and the subcultures that were part of my younger days were the goths and the hippies and things like that. So lots of tattoos, people that tend, and lots of piercings tend to be, and I know that that's not really like a fringe thing anymore. So it's obviously evolving, but those are some of the basic traits that go along with the Syrian starseeds. And ultimately, it is that kind of insular, very tight knit nature that leads these individuals to be kind of custodians and guardians. So, one example of, you know, people, well, multiple examples, and I'm sure if you have this in your chart, like, again, you have an easier time connecting to the animals and the plants in your life and nature than you do other people. And sometimes you're like, well, sometimes for me personally, because I do have these connections in my chart, sometimes I will, because I work a lot with animals in terms of, like, I do a lot of pet sitting and house sitting and stuff like that, and I've had many animals in my life, and continue to have them. And one of the things is, for me personally, I'm like, sometimes I get kind of like, man, these people don't understand their animals at all. And it's not there's anything wrong with other people. It's just that I am very inherently just can read animals' energies and know what it is they need or don't need. And same thing with plants, right? I just intuitively know and can have that conversation energetically with them. And that, again, is a very shamanic quality, because everything has an energy. And of course, in these indigenous cultures, and even like in Japanese Shinto, right? That's not necessarily shamanic, but it's about animism. Everything has the signature of the divine. So everything has life in it. And it's no different for, the minerals, right? The plants, the animals, the elements, all of it, right? So this is a huge activation for the Syrian starseed people in general. Okay. So these individuals, and, pay attention to things like the synchronicities, to dream state. I've been working with the starseed stuff for a number of years now, and I know, how that energy is shown to me, right? I have that connection to those beings who are part of the Syrian star system. They have a very specific way of showing themselves and engaging with me, and it's usually in dream time. or in shamanic journey, right? So, but they're very present. They've been very present the last couple days as we're leading up to this time period. So, again, if you're interested, you want to learn more, like I said, there is, or maybe I didn't say in this take, because I've done a couple takes. So there in the description box are all the links that you need for everything, and you can go to my website and see what it's all about and see if there's any readings that kind of speak to you, and if you're wanting to learn more about your starseed origins and what that can mean for you, because I really just grab it from the chart in particular, and we go from there, right? It tends to come back around many times over. So those of you who have starseed, Sirian starseed nature, like, you're gonna be feeling this big time with this new moon. And again, the initiation that's coming with this new moon. What are you gonna do with this power, right? Ultimately, you'll find, is it to exploit others, or is it to be in service to the whole, and your power is released in a very service oriented way, right? That's going to be coming out big time with the upcoming full moon on the 21st, which is what this report is leading up to. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the chart now and look at our play-by-play here of the Cancer rising chart. So Cancer rising is your ascendant, or your first house, and this is your subjective personality. So, but if you are a sun or a moon in Cancer, this is still going to have relevance for you in terms of just general themes. But this also, even if you don't have a lot of Cancer in your chart, or you're just here learning about astrology, it does give you a sense of A, all the transits that are going to be happening over the next 2 weeks, and B, how to read a horoscope, because this is how a horoscope is built. It's built off the rising sign and the transits that are happening in the day or the week or the month. So trying to demystify astrology as much as possible so people can read it for themselves. Now, here we are on the 5th of July, and this is tomorrow as of this recording, and this is going to be when our new moon in Cancer is going to be exact. So there is another chart that I'm going to show you as we go through the weeks, especially tomorrow, or I'm sorry, the 6th, which is going to be Saturday. There is a pretty remarkable chart to look at that includes the 4 major asteroids, which is Pallas Athena, asteroid Sirius. It's kind of a dwarf planet, and Sirius in particular is something to really look out because it's in Capricorn right now. So Sirius, or Demeter, was the goddess of agriculture and the grain, and really about nourishment and sustenance. She also represents the ebb and flow of the seasons in terms of a growing cycle. And Capricorn, at least in the northern hemisphere, that time of year is winter, right? That's where the power of your root system and how it has coalesced into a larger system, like an ecosystem, for instance. You're going to see how powerful it really is, because that's what gets you through the darkness. And Ceres right now, the asteroid or dwarf planet Ceres, is in Capricorn in opposition to all this Cancer energy, because Cancer is about how we individually feel, right? It's the individual character, self-esteem, personal power, and it's based on those root systems that we are each individually growing, right? That we're descending down into the medium of our growth, which is the soil, which is our traditions, which is our physical family lineage, right? It is about our resources. That's Taurus in the 2nd house. That is the medium of growth that the root system descends into. So Cancer rising, let's get into the play-by-play here with this new moon. And like I said, the degree of the new moon itself, 14 to 15 degrees of Cancer, is about being satiated. It's not even like being, it is the Sabian symbol of 14-15 Cancer is in a sumptuous dining hall. So just imagine this massive dining hall. Guests relax after partaking of a huge banquet. So it's the process, the passive process of letting things digest, basically, after, gorging yourself, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with being satiated. In fact, don't you want to be satiated? Don't you want to come together and really fulfill yourself and feel relaxed afterwards? That's what this new moon is really about. So some things to keep in mind here: it's the need that exists to materialize the concept of fulfillment. To materialize it, this is important as well. It's a symbol of the richness of life in any normal manifestation of itself, right? And the rewards of our own efforts, right? The root system must descend down and throughout in order to gather the resources that are going to be necessary for the growth of the plant, for instance. So now the thing is that we can't freeze this moment as much as we would like to. And the other side of that is that we can't, it's just like the image of from the Monty Python sketch, right? If we continue to just gorge ourselves, then we risk the potential of just exploding. And again, that full moon that we just had in Capricorn was the beginning of that. It was like, hey, there is this potential here that with all this power comes great responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility for this power, it can backfire and really bite you in the ass, in some cases, quite literally. So it's about individuality, right? Cancer, again, this is about the bottom of the astrological chart. Houses 1 through 6 are about individual identity and expression. Let me reformat this here real quick, just in case you are, in fact, looking at this chart. So, and I will point out for the Cancer rising folks, your 4th house of Libra, the South Node and Black Moon Lilith, which again is another lunar position. It is the lunar apogee in the 4th house. This is the natural placement for any kind of Cancer person, is the 4th house. And so be mindful of attempting to overcompensate for the sense of balance and in the realm of personal power, because Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, and there are a lot of people and a lot of factions that are working with Lilith in a way that will in fact backfire, in my opinion, right? That they're forcing the balance. And yes, there is something to be said with the South Node of another lunar placement in the 4th house for you, Cancer rising, that there's something to be said for balance, right? Libra is the balancing of scales in this area. But remember, the North Node is where we're being pulled into, which is the 10th house. That's the Capricorn house for Cancer rising, right? Where the power is released. And so Cancer people tend to get very focused and really sensitive to how they feel. And there's a lot to that. It's important that your intuition is on point. It's important that you are able to trust that intuition and you are sensitive to how you feel. But the dark side of that is that you don't come out of that. And that's where I feel like Lilith is really going, and the South Node of the moon, right? The default setting of the soul and where we've been, the tail of the dragon, right? You're not going in that direction. And if you think you are, then you're really just getting shit out with everything else at the end of the dragon. So, Cancer, be mindful that it's not all situated in how you feel. How you feel and your power is meant to be released into service to others. And this is where dark shamanism, dark sorcery crops up. And it can, right? This new moon is all about how you approach this initiation and what you do with this energy, okay? In terms of satiating yourself. Now, the positive side of this degree and this new moon is an effective and smooth demonstration of human competence, right? Now, what's the negative side? Well, self-disintegrating surrender to appetite. Oof, boy. And it's not really a stretch to see what factions out there are self-disintegrating, because they're doing it right now. I will say that Neptune's station of retrograde as of the 2nd, which was 2 days ago, wow, I personally couldn't have demonstrated it better myself in terms of Neptune ruling the media, Neptune ruling the illusion and fantasy. And when Neptune goes retrograde, wow, that fog clears, that mist burns off, and you see exactly what's happening. And didn't the media just pull a complete about face on Joe Biden, even though they've known this whole time where his cognitive functions have been? And then all of a sudden, Neptune stations retrograde, and it's just a complete about face, and the fog clears, and you're like, oh, that's what we're looking at. It's just so brilliantly lined up. So, the self-disintegrating surrender to appetite, and that's going to be, if the power is being consolidated and held and used for service to self, it will you will disintegrate through your own appetites. So keep that in mind as we go through here. Now, one of the things that I think is really beneficial, now, Cancer, look at where everything is distributed for the most part, with the exception of the personal planets and the sun and moon in your first and second houses, right, which is subjective and objective personality and the objective world around you. Everything is really in the realm of social expression, right? And even the ninth house with Saturn here now also retrograde in terms of belief systems and wisdom and purpose of these relationships. And so there's a lot of energy still situated for you, Cancer, in your social expression. And your own identity is now being brought forward as a new potential for growth. And that can be kind of difficult when you have all this energy situated in how you express yourself in the social context, and your sense of identity is changing, or how you feel is changing. But again, using your intuition, your sensitivity, your own feeling, knowing that your character is changing, knowing that you're shaping your character through your own will, is part of this new moon as well. You're going to have to take responsibility for your own healing, for your own growth. And if you are in fact meant to be some sort of shamanic custodian in just in your inner circle here, your family, whatever it is, that you have to take responsibility for that power. Okay, so now, along with the new moon, Mars is going to be in a sextile with Saturn. So you see the blue line here. A sextile is a 60-degree angle. It implies that there is a harmonious opportunity for transformation. There is an excess of energy with a sextile that has to go somewhere, and it can go somewhere really transformative and harmonious if we participate in it. Now, Mars is coming very close to Uranus. We're going to have this Mars-Uranus conjunction on the 15th during this period of the first half of this lunar cycle, and it's going to be conjunct to the star Algol, which is the head of the Gorgon. It's going to be very close to the Pleiades. I've talked about this already multiple times. I will continue to talk about it, but this is, a huge release point. And when we get to the 15th on the play-by-play, I'll give you some more information about, a general read of Mars conjunct Uranus. But the sextile to Saturn. Now, Saturn has stationed retrograde. And one of the ways that I have been envisioning it quite recently, especially because I have been feeling this pressure in its retrograde, is that it's like holding a yoga asana that is a strengthening posture. It looks like you're not doing anything, that you're just standing there, you're just sitting there, you're just holding this position. But I assure you that in holding that position, as anybody who has practiced any type of strength training or hatha yoga knows, that it's in that holding of that position or form that you are strengthening. And this Saturn retrograde feels so much like that right now. And so this sextile to Mars for the Cancer person, well, first of all, just the sextile in general really regulates your energy. So, if you're like for me, boat pose in a hatha yoga is, it's when your core is really doing the work and your whole body starts to shake as you're holding that, and you just, you hold it as long as you can. Well, this sextile to Saturn or to Mars from Saturn, it really helps regulate that energy, right? And gives you determination. Endurance is a big part of a sextile from Saturn to Mars. And so this is a great opportunity to methodically plan out your course of action in the most efficient way. And this has to do with the purpose and meaning of relationship for the Cancer person, Saturn in the ninth house, and how it has to be very formulaic, it has to be very structured in terms of your belief systems, in terms of the wisdom, purpose, meaning, understanding. That's the ninth house. Now, ninth house can also be higher education, advanced training, foreign travel. But I would say with Saturn here in this area and in Pisces, it's really about, I think it's a lot about spiritual belief and how it has to be, impeccable. And it's kind of forcing the issue now with the retrograde, like you have to hold the form. But it's sextile to Mars over in the 11th house, which is about our hopes and dreams, right? The social context that we release our gift into, which is really what represents its hopes and dreams. It's not we don't realize our hopes and dreams just by having passion. The passion has to be received by the community, by the society, by our peers. And that's where our hopes and dreams are realized in the 11th house. And so Mars being here, it's very enterprising and really pushing forward. So Saturn, in terms of belief system and understanding, is really regulating that energy in terms of hopes and dreams. Which, again, for the Cancer rising person, this is going to be the area of Mars and Uranus conjunct, this release point. And it'll be why the moon, your ruling body, Cancer, your moon is in Scorpio in your 5th house, right? In the house of your passion. So we'll talk more about when we get there. I'm just bringing up that along with this new moon is this energy that really favors patience, ambition, endurance, determination to really push forward your hopes and dreams in the realm of your peers and your societal networks, in the social organism as a whole, your community. And you can confidently work with this energy because it's giving you that stamina, endurance, and determination. It's a really good opportunity to make very solid progress with a long-term project because Saturn is forcing us to maintain a form. And for Cancer, it's going to be in the purpose and meaning of social relationship, right? The ninth house is the alchemy of relationship and the transmutation of the raw energy of duality, creating something new, right? So, new relationships are possible, but they evolve very slowly in this case. And it's just, this is just a really good opportunity to be determined and have that endurance while this new moon is also right here. So this is a great transit to be happening, in my opinion. Now, the 6th, the 6th of July, I'm going to just pull up this chart here because this is with the asteroids. And I think when I saw it, I was like, wow. So not only is this a mystic rectangle, but look at how many oppositions are happening. 1, 2, 3, 4 oppositions all meeting at the center, right? We got the nodes of the moon. We have the Cancer and Capricorn energy with Ceres, asteroid Ceres. We have Mars and Pallas Athena. So if Mars is the warrior, Pallas Athena is the strategist, wisdom and strategy of war, right? They're in opposition as well because Mars just wants to charge forward and Pallas Athena is like, hey, it's okay. They have to be calculated risks, okay? Juno and Saturn in opposition. If Saturn's the judge in the courtroom, Juno is the advocate for those who are being judged, right? They're in opposition to each other, Virgo and Pisces. There is a lot of tension. And then there's this mystic rectangle, for the most part, that is surrounding a lot of this energy. That either can just box it in and make us kind of lazy about it, or I would say is able to give a lot of, especially with Mars and Saturn here, a lot of endurance, a favorable way to make the most of all of this tension that's happening. And we all feel it. I know we do. I feel it. Everybody I know is feeling it for different reasons. And this particular this particular configuration tomorrow on the 6th is not escaped my attention in terms. Now, if you look at the chart without this, without those 4 asteroids being involved, it looks like it doesn't look nearly as outrageous, right? You see this opposition with the nodes and Lilith, and you see the connection with Saturn and Mars and the Cancer energy, but you go back to this one and you're like, wow. So paying attention to the strategy and the calculated risk in terms of our passion and our self-expression, especially Cancer people. Juno is about the balance of our own mindset, right? I mean, the knowledge is, knowledge is what we learn. We have knowledge, we discover knowledge, we gain knowledge in the 3rd house, and Juno is like, it has to be balanced no matter what. There is always going to be an antithesis, and Juno is there to keep that balance, right? She's there to advocate for fairness in our minds as well, and there's something to be said for that. Saturn in the 9th house can be so restricting and so intense that it's just like, there's no way out of this, right? That I can't even give myself the capacity to have opposite but corresponding thoughts. Juno's like, you kind of have to, right? There is no understanding and wisdom without some knowledge to begin the process. And that's where Juno is as well. So there's a lot we're thinking about, and there is a lot of pressure and tension that is shown in this chart. So, take it easy on yourself, but don't just bypass it entirely either, or feel like that there's no hope. And I do feel like that Saturn in its retrograde can be so intense that it can feel like you're sinking. And it may feel like there is no purpose, or that you can't realize the purpose of their difficult relationships in your life with this retrograde. But I assure you, the table is already set. And that's been the case since Saturn got into 19 to 20 degrees Pisces. So we're coming back to this point. Now, what else is happening on the 6th is Venus is in a square to Chiron, which is up here in Aries, in the 10th house. So for Cancer rising, the 10th house is where your power is released. And in mundane astrology, it's your career, right? So it could be your career in terms of your work, it could be your career in terms of your domestic role, right? It is about where your power is released. Your professional persona is the 10th house. And of course, Cancer rising, the north node of the moon, the trajectory of our souls at this point is in this area of professional life. And by the way, of course, the United States natal chart is a Cancer sun. So not a Cancer rising, it's a Sag rising, but still you can feel this energy. But Chiron is also here, really making it very difficult to transcend out of the material form into that 11th house of the social consciousness, right? Out of the form and into the hopes and dreams. So Chiron here, for Cancer rising people, has been poking at those wounds that keep you, I think, from realizing and being able to transcend, right? Being able to break out of the limitation of where your professional life has been, or where your public life has been, or where your power has been released. And this Venus square Chiron at this point is really going to challenge this as well, because Venus in the 1st house, especially Chiron, Cancer, there's just going to be that much more sensitivity and meaning and value to your role as a nurturer, your role as a custodian, as a guardian, and the necessity for some measure of interdependence with all of these things. But the square to Chiron, you just got to lean into it and be like, there is something to be said for spirit coming in and molding and shaping our perspective, right? You're not going to do it all yourself. That's Cancer. It's not all about how you feel. How you feel is a huge part of it, and that needs to be incorporated, but it's how you utilize that power, how it's released. And the other side of this Chiron is, at this degree in Aries, is that you're waiting for something to just blow in and shape you. And Venus in your 1st house is like, you have to actually be a participant in this process. You have to, see the parts of yourself that need to work together And there's a lot of value to that. And I think Venus in Cancer is just adding to that, of course. So it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. Of course, the moon will move through Cancer and trine Saturn, which is very stabilizing, gives practicality and self reliance. It's going to conjunct Venus in Cancer. So there's peace and harmony, and feeling very caring and loving. And there's nothing wrong with those things. I think that those are very important. Even the moon is going to trine Neptune. Now there's going to be more of these big trines to Neptune over the next 2 weeks. Okay. Now the next big day for Cancer rising folks in general here is going to be the 8th of July. So where are we here? We're the weekend. Okay. And let's go to, now you can see that things are starting to stabilize. Now, when I kind of looked at this and turned my head to the right to see what this might look like from a different vantage point, I saw a person sitting in the lotus position, or you can look at it as kind of like a vessel in some ways, which is very Cancerian, if you know what I mean, as the cup, right? The grail, the womb, the vessel that holds the vulnerability. So these blue lines indicate that they are harmonious and strong connections. The red lines in astrology are where we have friction and tension and challenge and frustration. So, of course, coming into the 7th, into the 8th, we're going to have all of these opportunities and all of this really, foundational, stabilized energy. So, and where is that coming from? Well, number one, Venus will be in a sextile to Uranus, also in the 11th house. So, the hopes and dreams aspect for the Cancer rising with Uranus here has been really outside the box. Now, Uranus typically rules the 11th house, right? It's the ruler of Aquarius. Aquarius is the 11th house sign. It is the social consciousness outside of form. It lasts beyond the material institutions that lead to that social consciousness, civilization. So Uranus here has been, I think for the Cancer people, has been, just very outside of the box. And certainly there's been a lot that has been unplanned, unexpected, that is happening in the social consciousness, in your peer groups, in your community. This sextile to Uranus, and it's the degree that Mars and Uranus are going to be conjunct. There's just a catharsis that's coming here. And it's really a catharsis of the self, based on a willingness to kind of adjust to the needs of the whole. And you can't necessarily pinpoint it, and it might feel, and it's a bit outside of the box. It is transcendent with Uranus in the 11th house. And in that adjustment, I think there will be, yes, it could feel like a violent storm. Now, this could very easily translate into Hurricane Beryl, the landfall and what it could do, because 27 Cancer is a violent storm in a canyon filled with expensive homes, right? There's a catharsis here, but there is a need to face this social upheaval. So it's not going to come without its upheaval, right? Within, for the Cancer people, it will be within a sense of self, who you are, how you express yourself, how you feel if you're a Cancer moon. But it's going to come through these changes in your community, right? Your hopes and dreams, maybe they are changing with Uranus in the 11th house. You are adjusting to the needs of the whole, because and you yourself are identified as a fleeting part. And yeah, that might feel like a social, it might feel like an upheaval of self, but at the same time, you realize what's really important, and what you truly value about yourself is where you can kind of pull into that canyon and actually feel a sense of protection. On the other side, the other aspect, now Mercury is in Leo. The moon will have moved into Leo at this point, and what we're going to find is that Mercury comes into a sextile with Jupiter, which is moving through the 11th house for the Cancer rising person. Okay. Now, when Mercury is in a sextile to Jupiter, right, that's 6. So these are two 60-degree angles that that transformation is a possibility. The release of energy is happening regardless when we get to this point. It's if we participate in it consciously, it can be very harmonious and we can kind of up level from it. So this particular sextile, while Mercury's in Leo and Jupiter is in Gemini, so this is much more of a masculine trait as opposed to the Venus-Uranus sextile, Cancer-Taurus, much more of a feminine trait. This is a great time to plan for the future. And yes, I mean, I think that there's a sense of taking a nosedive in terms of the spiritual, the collective unconscious, right, of the 12th house. But you have Mercury in the second house, right? That is just your individual mental focus is on your resources. This is a great time to think about and plan for the future. You have a broad outlook, and there is this broad understanding that at the end of all of it, that there's going to have to be this, like I said, it's kind of like taking a nosedive, an airplane taking a nosedive. But in that process, I think there's a mental awareness that there is a feeling of exaltation that can come out as you pass through that test, right? That there will be a course correction. You take the nosedive with the understanding that you will course correct, and it'll be in the realm of the resources and material possessions of the second house, right? Maybe even just your own family traditions, your own body, right? The second house too is the structure of reality. So spiritually, and in the 12th house, in the astral, right, in the Akashic record, there is a broad understanding of having to take a risk in some cases. But Mercury is just like, but you know what? I can plan on, knowing that this is going to take me through a test. And didn't we just talk about how this whole lunar cycle is about a shamanic initiation? So right here, you have these two sextiles on the 8th that are providing opportunities to transform individually through some sort of type of test or initiation process. In this particular transit, Mercury and Jupiter in a sextile, right? A broad outlook, excellent decision-making skills, right? To visualize your preferred path, right? Positive thinking goes along with a transit like this, and is looking ahead is very ideal. So knowing that these types of experiences that are initiatory, knowing that there is an exaltation, that you come out of the darkness in this process, I think is a way to transform and have a positive outlook on what's coming. So there's a really easy uptake of ideas and good concentration with a sextile like this. And so again, planning or setting out on a vacation is preferred, right? Planning ahead, broad outlook, really, really good. And then of course the Mercury is in a trine to the North Node in the 10th house as well. So very, the mental aspect of resources and how that is released in a public professional way is also very balanced, okay? Now here we come with another one of these Cancer trines to Saturn. It's actually the last one because Mercury and Venus have already come into this trine with Saturn. So now we're coming into early next week, and we still have a lot of beneficial energy. It's starting to wane by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday, but we have this trine with the Sun and Neptune. Now, this represents a time of steady progress, okay? Extra patience, determination, and a strong sense of duty allows for great achievements, okay? You'll feel balanced and focused, not distracted. So this is the 10th, right? And the moon is coming into Virgo, which will come into opposition with Saturn. So Cancer, let me warn you here. The moon is your ruling body, and it's going to come into an opposition with Saturn, and you're going to feel disconnected. You're going to feel so sad, lonely, having a hard time sharing your emotions, have a hard time, translating knowledge into wisdom, because it's going to feel like that the purpose of things can't really change, or there is no purpose when all of it is already set up, right? If you believe in fate or whatever, you're like, well, what's the point? They're gonna have that feeling. What's the point? You're going to feel depressed, possibly. A morbid outlook is very, very possible. Okay. But the sun in your sign, Cancer, is where you're going to find that determination, a sense of duty. A sense of duty, okay, in terms of your self expression, in terms of your subjective personality, who you are, the person that walks through this world as a Cancer identified person. This trine to Saturn is going to be really, really important. Yeah, you might feel these ways, okay, but you have got to tap into this Cancer energy. Because this is where you have to work hard in building safe and secure and lasting foundations. Okay. It's very easy to get lost here and to be just be like, what's the point? There's no point to any of this, right? I'm telling you, with the 10th, this is a good time to be aware of that and to keep going, right? That know that this is the time to really focus on steady progress, even if you're feeling kind of like, I can't seem to bring this together. Like, in my mind, I can't bring all my effort together because the purpose of things, it seems like it's already set. I'm going to assure you that it's a fleeting feeling because it's a moon transit. Now, yes, it's going to be extra sensitive for you, Cancer, but remember the sun is in your sign too, and this trine to Saturn is going to be very important to keep your head above water here. Now, the 11th is when Venus comes into a trine with Neptune. Now, this already happened with Mercury as Neptune was stationing retrograde. So Mercury and Neptune come into a trine as all of this stuff is happening over the weekend into early this week with just everything, right? The Supreme Court rulings, the whole debate debacle, and how the media has flipped and everything on social media, and Mercury trine Neptune. Really, I think the communication of all of that was pretty obvious. Now, Venus in a trine to Neptune is about, just romance and relaxation and daydreaming and fantasizing, and it favors like creative projects and singing and anything that's beautiful. Now, remember, Neptune is retrograde, right? The fog has cleared, and so you have a much more realistic view of these broad spectrum, ideal humanitarian aspects that Neptune, right? I put up a video of Neil Oliver, one of his most recent monologues, and I linked that on Telegram, and I don't know if I did on YouTube or not, but it's really easy to find. But his monologue really was very apt in terms of the way it described a Neptune retrograde. He wasn't talking about it like that, but I heard it, right? How, the house lights have come up, right? You see all the makeup on all the performers, right? You realize that it's a set and a stage. So with Venus in a trine, it can be a little bit kind of like, whoa, that's not as like fantasy oriented as I thought. But it also, you don't have to give up on your sense of compassion and service to others. This is a great time to really help other people and to tap into that guardian custodian type of energy with Venus in a trine to Neptune. And yes, it's very conservative at the last degree of Cancer. Almost too conservative. It can be too conservative. It can be too insulated. But this trine to Neptune is going to be like, you know what? There is something worth preserving here, and feeling either a creative outlet for it or just wanting to help other people. And you might, this can express itself in a lot of different ways, and you're more inclined to want to share your compassion and your empathy, right, with a Venus trine Neptune, and connecting to people at a spiritual level, right? And again, there's entertaining people. Maybe you're visiting friends. Maybe you are watching movies and you know that it's a movie and you're just like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy it anyway, right? It's just very relaxing, and it's very beautiful, and it can be very entertaining, but it's going to be clear. It's not going to be like completely fantasized at this point with Venus trine Neptune, and I think that that's okay. Now, right after that, though, Venus comes into Leo, as we see, and comes into opposition with Pluto. And this is next Friday, okay? Now we're getting into territory that has to do with the first quarter moon phase, and that's always a crisis and a crisis in action. What do I do, right? And whenever we do these lunar transits, it'll always be these crisis points always are in the fourth house, whether it's your new moon or I'm doing the thing for the full moon. The moon comes into the fourth house, which is the square between personality and character, right? So before we get there, though, Venus opposite Pluto gets very intense in your close relationships. People become obsessed, people become compulsive. Power imbalances are very much highlighted, and this already happened with Mercury, so it's going to be that much more relational as opposed to cerebral and mental and communicative with Venus opposite Pluto. So the best way to handle this is to determine the origins of how you're feeling and what is coming out for you. So this is in the realm of resources for the Cancer rising person, Leo Aquarius. So how you're feeling about resources, and there can be a lot of possessiveness with Venus in the second house here, and especially with Pluto in the eighth that has just done so much damage, of course, and is forcing us to view and to behold the damage that's already been done. And for the Cancer rising person, this is in, the realm of death, sex, and taxes, right? That there's been real destruction in these areas, and Venus here can get very possessive out of a need to control something in terms of our own resources. So just be aware of that people might get very possessive and obsessed during this type of phase, because it's going to get really intense, and you may be dealing with all kinds of relationship drama, manipulation, power plays here. So understand where your feelings are coming from. Be open and honest with people, especially your partner, if this is happening. Be aware of what is your resource and what is resource that is shared and generated in relationship, because that's where the real damage has been done. And power and control issues can really come up with Venus coming into the second house like this, especially in Leo, because it becomes all about us with Leo. So the first quarter moon will be in Libra on the 13th and the 15th. So that's going to be still present. The first quarter moon phase will be present when we get to the 15th, right? So we're going to be in this crisis of action. What do I do? And then you have Mars, Uranus in a conjunction here. And then you have Sun square Chiron, right? Where Venus had done it as well. So Mars conjunct Uranus. It really strongly urges people to break free out of limiting situations, right? And that can be exciting, or that can be really destabilizing. Now, we've talked about this already in several formats, that Algol, or the head of the Gorgon, or Medusa, this is the star. And this star has always been a bad star in astrology. Okay, because it represents detachment. It represents the head being chopped off of the Gorgon, but it also represents that monster within that is sitting up on the surface, right? That Medusa is also being released, right? There is a detachment, but it's a peaceful adaptation, right? To collective needs. And we can look at this as like being very disinterested in the superficialities, right? And it's the inner reality that really anchors us. Now, this goes into this Cancer energy big time. This is the type of thing where this is like the initiation, right? Is when you have this experience of detachment that can really indicate where that inner reality is actually anchored. And it's, again, it strongly urges you to break out of limiting situations. And yes, Mars is very individual in the way that we project ourselves through it, okay? And so you may find yourself acting in some way that's going to initiate this, but I have a feeling that there is a tendency to act spontaneously and erratically, and it can cause unwanted things and upset in your life. And you don't want to necessarily take uncalculated risks, right? There's Pallas Athena in your fifth house, calculated risk, right? but making and sticking to plans is not going to work with Uranus involved, right? It's very erratic, okay? And so you can use this energy to find new and stimulating adventures. That way you're kind of reducing the risk of unexpected events. But let's just be honest here. I just feel like that there's not going to be a lot of control, especially for Cancer rising people, because it's in their 11th house. There's not going to be a lot of control necessarily over the event itself. It's going to have a lot to do with how we respond to it, okay? This is going to be one of those moments on the 15th into the 16th. And I wouldn't say that things necessarily calm down leading up to the full moon, but the next really big transit, we get the kind of this week to really deal with this energy. You know, the sun is going to still be in a square to Chiron. And, you know, that's a lot of ego issue in terms of our wounding just in general. But what we're going to find as we get closer to the full moon in Capricorn, which is on the 21st, we're going to see, we see the moon coming into the 6th house opposite Jupiter. Self-sacrifice versus the surrender to divine source in the 12th house. But it's going to be Mars in its sextile to Neptune that is, you know, and there's a lot of other stuff going on, smaller transits, right? Lilith is opposite Saturn again, and you have you know, Venus and the nodes of the moon, you have Mercury and Chiron, but the big one is this Mars sextile Neptune leading up to the full moon in Capricorn. And I think that's where we're really going to end this particular forecast, because the last degree of Taurus is really just aloofness, right? It's the peacock that's just kind of parading on the terrace of an old castle. You know, you are displaying your personal gifts as, you know, the ones that you've inherited. When Mars is in a sextile to Neptune, you become very sensitive to the desires of others, and you enjoy being of service to them. I think that, you know, when we get to this point, the initiation will have been, I don't want to say necessarily complete, but this is where it kind of is complete. You know, you get to choose at this point if you want to be of service to others and act in a way that fulfills their desires, right? And again, we're talking about the social expression realm for the Cancer rising. You know, there's a lot of healing energy to share here. And if you're a Cancer, certainly as a Cancer person, there's a lot of healing energy around that particular sign, but also too the Sirian Starseed aspect is going to be real, and the shamanic aspect is going to be a really big part of having that healing energy to share, and asserting your spiritual energy, you know, to defend people, to fight for a just cause, right? A strong sense of what is right will guide you in your actions with this sextile. Spiritual truths can be found by applying your spiritual beliefs. Now remember, that's with Saturn in the 9th house, and yeah, that can be really difficult. But if you are like, wow, I am holding this pose like a boss, then I feel like that you're going to have that spiritual belief that is going to anchor you into finding spiritual truths and utilizing them to help other people. And so, you know, you want to spend time with people in order to do this, but this sextile I think is really important, especially as Mars is about to come into Gemini. And then on the 21st we have our full moon, and I just want to show you that Cancer, this is still going to be very relevant to you, because it's going to be Capricorn and Cancer that we have this new moon, or this full moon phase here. And of course, the full moon, again, will be in your 7th house for Cancer rising. It's going to be in the last degrees. And you know, do you have this kind of, you know, it's like a willingness to maintain what is established in terms of tradition and custom, right? That's the energy of 30 degrees Cancer, right? Your root system. And even in a sharp rejection of anything else that's attempting to modify that influence, right? To just be like, I'm going to stand firm here. My root system cannot blow, I'm not going anywhere. And yes, there's an outer conservatism that carries with it a warning against being resistant to change just by the sheer resistance, right? You don't want to be so, you know, stiff that you get broken, right? It's just like that willow tree that is bending and moving with the wind. This is part of this. And the downside, the thing about this full moon is really going to show, right, where people have ultimately betrayed themselves by a false assumption of superiority, right? That the initiation, the shamanic initiation, the healing initiation that comes with this new moon, as we get to this full moon again, it's going to be like, are you using this power for successful administration of and release of power, or is it rampant selfishness and exploitation of other people? I think that's going to become very clear here. And of course, on the same day as the full moon, Mercury is going to square Uranus. Good luck with that, because there's lots of stuff that you're not going to, oh my gosh, so many transits. Mercury square Uranus, Sun trine Neptune, Mars trine Pluto. There is a lot that's going to be happening on this day that I think I'm just going to save for the Capricorn full moon report, because whoo boy, it would just take a whole lot of time to just go over that right now. So Cancer, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so much. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time, you know what to do. Interact with the content if you want to support this channel. Certainly, if you are interested in anything else I have to offer through Catalyst Energies, everything you need is in the description box below, and you can reach out to me, go to my website. You can look into membership and support on Subscribestar, and you get a myriad of benefits. One of which is that we do a group call on our private Telegram channel on a monthly basis, and we have one scheduled for this Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. It's in the words of one of our members, it's going to be a banger. I think it really truly is. It's going to be pretty intense and lively. So thank you for being here. Enjoy the holiday weekend if you are celebrating the birthday of the United States of America. If you're not, just enjoy this new moon as much as possible. Realize how much of an initiatory process we're about to go through. Know that that initiatory process is what shapes and our character. It is what deepens our foundation, and how you choose to use that is really up to you, and how you choose to use that moving forward is going to shape your character. Absolutely. Take care, friends, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.